Hi, and welcome to the Nordic Growth Podcast. So this podcast, for the ones of you who might potentially be joining for the first time, is a podcast which I am releasing. It's actually quite new. I've been podcasting as my guest for many years now. I had an old podcast which I did with a co-host. We ran that for 10 years. It was covering marketing, sales, leadership. This one is going to be focusing on company leaders, owners, entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs as well. And the topics are going to differ from sales, marketing, productivity, leadership, etc., etc. So anything that could basically make your life easier as an entrepreneur, and productivity and health and staying in shape and everything I always normally mention on my Instagram account is going to be part of today's focus. But it's going to be a lot about productivity, how to not stress out, how to do things maybe the other way around than you're used to doing it. And my guest today is somebody I've been following for some time. And what I like about you, Carl, it's Carl Pullein. He's going to join me today. He's in the screen here. What I love about your approach is that you put simplicity first, and you actually mentioned before we kicked off that the worst thing you know is to make things complex and complicate things. And I could give you a check mark, totally agree. Actually, my company has a tagline which is complexity made simple. And that means and that's the hardest thing to do. And I'm totally convinced we're going to get back to that. But I'll do a short introduction. Correct me if I'm saying something you don't agree, but we've double checked before we kicked off. So I'm going to give the listeners and the viewers, who is Carl Pullein then? So Carl Pullein, originally from the UK, embarked on a journey to South Korea in 2002 with the intention of staying for a short term of period of time. However, Carl discovered a passion for teaching and productivity, leading him to make Korea his home for over 2 decades. You're in the evening, I'm in daytime, and we'll get back to that in terms of productivity. First, I'm just going to mention that you're renowned for developing 2 innovative productivity frameworks. The first one is the time sector system, and the other one is the COD method, which we are going to cover in the podcast today. You've authored several books, including Your Time, Your Way, and Your Digital Life. You do work a lot with Todoist. We're not going to cover Todoist today. If you want to find out more about Todoist, Carl's YouTube channel has a bunch of stuff about that. But you also have a book called Working with Todoist. Perfect. Intro. Same age, similar age as myself. Also why I love having this conversation, because I think it's a different thing if you've tried most of the things, you've lived your life and your experience. So again, this is going to be so interesting. I have an intro question for you before we kick off, and then I'm going to hand over to you. So you've chosen to live in South Korea, which isn't exactly the obvious choice for a productivity coach from the UK. I don't know, but that's not my experience. So what drew you there originally, and how has living in South Korea influenced how you think about time and efficiency? I have my ideas, but I'm going to hand over to you. How did you end up where you are, and tell us a bit about that. And welcome to the show.
I think it actually comes from... When I first went into the workplace, I started in hotel management, and then I went into car sales. Now, if you think about those 2 jobs, hotel management's all about running around. That's what you do all day. You run around, whether you work in a restaurant, a bar, you do housekeeping, front of house. You run. You are running all day. Yeah. And then when I went into car sales, it wasn't quite as much running, but you're still running around. The one thing that never happened to me was I was never chained to a desk, ever. And then I decided I need to get serious about my career. So I went to university and did law, and then went to work in a law office. Suddenly, I was introduced to the office and the 9 till 5.
Yeah.
And I've not heard anyone else explain it like this, but perhaps because I started out not working in an office, but suddenly I felt I'd been imprisoned. Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, I had to be at my desk. There was office managers who if you disappeared for probably longer than 10 minutes, they'd want to know where you were. And it was like, okay, this is not for me. This is not my life. No way is this for me. So after about 18 months, I went, I need some time out because I do not want to do this for the rest of my life, but I've just spent 6 years studying law. And I'm going, I think I've just made a huge mistake. So I thought, right, some time out, but this is like a serious time out. So I thought, well, I'm old enough now to need to earn a salary. And I was fortunate when I was working in the hotel. I worked with a couple of Korean colleagues. I think they were students at the local university and did part-time work. And they told me all about Korea. It was what a fantastic country it was. Plus the fact that at that time in the UK, so this is 2002, a pint of beer was about £3 to £4. And I think the selling point for me at that point was when they said, "Oh no, in Korea it's £1."
So it's all about the beer then. I was hoping it was something else like the...
No. Now, to be fair, at that time I was also a smoker, so cigarettes were getting very expensive as well.
Yeah.
And in Korea back then it was less, just under £1 for a packet. So that was a factor as well. But now I don't smoke anymore, so it wouldn't be a factor today. But back then, 20 years ago, it was a factor, and that was really it. The other thing I should say is that at university there was quite a large Korean community. There was quite a few from Hong Kong, one or two from Japan. One thing I did notice was that all the Japan and Hong Kong students, they studied. They were really very diligent. They studied hard. The Korean students, on the other hand, on a Friday and Saturday night, they'd be in the pubs, and that was kind of like going, okay, they know how to have fun. So those were kind of the factors.
That's super interesting because I was about to ask you about the Eastern culture and ways of living, and you tend to. I've been to Japan, never been to Korea. I'd love to go. Been to Japan twice, to Tokyo both times, Kyoto as well. And you get what you see is the efficiency, but you also see the backside of it, like people working themselves to death, to use simple words. They have their managers. They are super scared of what's happening if they don't fall into place and do the 9 to 9s or even worse, sleep in the office and stuff. Is this something different in Korea, or people more living life in a different way than for example, the Japanese? Now I'm very generalizing now, but
I know that my Korean friends will hate me for saying this because Japan actually occupied Korea for I think about 50 years. So there is still quite a little bit of the Japanese culture, particularly working culture, that was imported into Korea. But over the last 20 years, it has changed. When I first came here, it was like you couldn't leave the office until your boss left. That was a big no-no. Today, it's much more relaxed. There is much better... I suppose work-life balance, if there is such a thing, but there is a lot more emphasis on rest and getting back home and socializing, so to speak.
That's good because you also talk a lot about productivity and the connection to your life and health. And you used to be a smoker. You're not smoking anymore. You had, as myself and everybody else, challenges with your weight, so you started working out, training, focusing that time in your calendar to take care of yourself. And a lot of people within the productivity, the ones I follow and talk to, the first thing you need to focus on is your health and your private part of your life, and then you can schedule work stuff. And let's get back to that and talk. I think that's super, super important and very interesting. Let's kick into the podcast. And the first point I have here, the first topic, is what I call the modern work crisis, for a lack of other words or sentences. So what is the single biggest lie we have been sold about productivity in the last decade? What are you seeing every single time? What is the lie we need to understand?
Yeah, I think the biggest, I wouldn't say necessarily it was a lie. I think it might be a misunderstanding more than anything else, which is that people are trying to manage work by workload. And it's impossible. Because one thing that's happening, and I think everyone accepts this now, is that the number of inputs, so messages, Slack messages, team messages, text messages, emails, all that stuff is just increasing and getting faster.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that you have control over. So what I see the biggest mistake, and I suppose in a way it's a lie, you've got to manage your work. You cannot manage your work because it's first of all, a lot of it is unknown. When I woke up this morning, I had no idea what emails I had, what questions I was going to get asked, what things I was going to get asked to do. I had my plan for the day, but I didn't know a lot of the detail yet because obviously a lot of that's coming in by communication. So that was the biggest one at the moment that I see. And I feel so many people are struggling because they really are. They're trying to manage workload. And you can't because you have no control over what's coming in. The only control you have is where you apply your time. And I think in many ways, going back to what you were saying about the Japanese culture and that you're scared of the boss, I think there's a little bit of overhang even in Western cultures on that one. And also, I think my favorite one is there was a company I did some work with a couple of years ago that said, we insist that all our consultants must respond to their client messages within 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I kind of went, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine in theory, but there are too many things. I mean, okay, a bathroom break might not be 15 minutes. Well, it depends what you were eating the night before, I guess. But,
True, yeah.
But there are too many emergencies that can happen in the day.
Yeah.
And what you've done there is you've created an unsustainable practice. It's not sustainable. So, again, when you try to control the uncontrollable, i.e. work coming in, you are always going to lose.
And yeah, it makes total sense. And one thing you mention very often is also that we tell us a bit like how do we as human beings estimate how long a task takes? Are we good at it?
Well, the problem here is that again, I think this is maybe it's not so much a misunderstanding, but it's like I suppose it is a misunderstanding. Is that we're not machines. We're breathing, living human beings, and I feel absolutely fine right now, but I could have a bad night's sleep. There could be all sorts of noise outside. I might be coming down with a cold, but I don't know yet, or flu. But I could wake up tomorrow morning feeling absolutely terrible. How's my productivity going to be tomorrow? It's not going to be very good.
No.
Now, I can do, I think you briefly touched on it, like the three foundations of all productivity, or better productivity, is sleep, movement, because I know some people say, I don't like exercise. You don't have to exercise, you just have to move. And diet. So if you go out, I mean, everyone probably knows, if you go out and have a very heavy carbohydrate lunch, how effective are you going to be in the afternoon? You're not going to be very effective at all. So that's why we can't predict how long a task will take. I've been writing a blog now for, 10 years? Every week for 10 years. Each post is about 1,000 words long. And you'd think after 10 years that I'd be pretty good at estimating how long a first draft would take me. I have no idea. It changes every week. Some weeks I can do it in 40 minutes. Other weeks it takes me 2 hours.
And isn't that kind of like in the age of AI and automation and people are going to be like not needed anymore? Isn't this kind of a fresh thing to know? Like it makes us human. It's like you don't really know. We're not a machine. We're not machines, and we're never going to be machines. Well, potentially sometime. But again, I mean, for me, this is something that makes us humans. Also, the illogical ways of making decisions, the emotional way of making decisions, that makes us humans. Because you can't, if everybody was an AI or a robot, everything would work perfectly. It would be a bit boring, though, I would say.
Well, you'd have to accept that eventually AI would run out of ideas, because everything we humans are creating today is what AI is using for ideas when anyone does a search.
That's true.
So if we stop creating ideas, new, fresh thinking on things, then AI is going to get weaker and weaker and weaker because it's not going to have that new input. So it'll become very old-fashioned very quickly.
Interesting.
And that's the difference between what AI is. So AI relies on, I suppose, people, content creators, which is why I have no problem AI scraping my blog post, podcasts, YouTube video. I don't care because it helps people. Eventually somebody will discover something.
Exactly.
That may be an idea that I threw out there that AI can use. So I see myself as, helping AI. I don't see AI ever being able to take my work, because without me, AI wouldn't exist. Or I should say, without people like me and other people who've posted information online, AI would not exist.
Because at the end of the day, what you do and what I do through my company and what other people do is we want to give people insights. We want to teach them, share things, and we will get things back. That's what it's all about. That's for me and for you and for many of the other content creators out there. That's what it's about. So let's jump into the time sector system versus traditional task management. If you want to add the COD framework here as well, feel free. What is it that you've found, identified, and repackaged into really nice system and methodology? And how does this differ from the way we normally look at productivity and task management?
Well, COD actually is a result of probably 30 years of research. I became fascinated with time management and productivity when I was in middle school. Then applied it when I started working, and was inspired by some very productive people I worked with when I was in my 20s. But when I've read every book that has come out, still comes out. I love reading them. But the thing that I found is that all the best productivity systems, the ones that are not quirky, the ones that are not relying on the latest technology, which means they will be out of date very quickly, they have some fundamental basics. And that's where COD came in, which is, I realized that it's really simple, actually, which is that you've got to collect stuff into a place that you trust. And that can be a notebook, it could be a digital tool, it doesn't really matter. As long as you trust it, that's the key thing. Then at some point in the day, or I usually say within 48 hours, you organize what you collected. So that's the O part of COD. You organize it. Now, how you organize it, again, is really up to you. It needs to kind of work the way your brain works. And then the D for COD is doing. You've got to do it. You've got to get the work done. So the key with COD is to minimize the middle part, the organizing. You minimize that to its very, very basics, so that you're not because this is where a lot of people go wrong with getting things done, was they spend way too much time organizing. And given that you only have 24 hours...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to mention for the ones listening and viewing this is what made me super interested in your methodology, because I've been doing OmniFocus, complex stuff, project management tools. I've been complicating a lot of things and nothing gets done. So you're going to tell us more about that, but that's super interesting and very valuable, I would say, to not overdo the organization. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So as I say, we've got this timeline every day, and the great thing about this timeline, this 24-hour timeline, is it renews every day. We can't expand it. We can't make it smaller. So what you're looking at is, how can I, keeping in mind we've got to sleep, we've got to eat, we've got to move, exercise, but how can I maximize my doing time and minimize my organizing? Collecting is something you're going to do all the time, because random things will come at you all the time. But that organizing thing. So I tested this, and I came down to, if you could spend 20 minutes a day organizing all the stuff that you collected, you're not going to have any backlogs. You're going to have pretty much everything that you need where it needs to be, and it's there when you need it. And it's 10 to 20 minutes a day. When you get really good at this, it's definitely 10 minutes. Initially, because you're still learning where you're putting stuff, it's going to probably take you 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
So that's the COD part.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, so then the time sector system is like on the next level, which is organizing. So it comes back to the organizing. It's like, okay, so it doesn't really matter what you have to do if you haven't got the time to do it. This is something that just hit me. I remember I was walking to the gym one day, and I went, That's it. That's the key to understanding time management and productivity. It doesn't matter how much you've got to do if you haven't got the time to do it, because it's not going to get done. So what are you going to do now? Well, ideally you can say no, but that's not practical in every instance. So I thought, right, so that means really we're dealing with time. That's the only thing we can work with, because that's the only thing we do have control over, what we do with the time that we have. The great thing about time is it's fixed, so now we can start allocating it to different parts of work. But all that stuff coming in doesn't need to be done today, so now we can organize that by when am I going to do it? So it's what is it, what do I need to do, and then the critical question, when am I going to do it? And that's either this week, next week, this month, next month, etc. And that's the time sector system in a nutshell, which is when are you going to do it?
So one thing which always pops up in task management and lists and productivity is due dates. So again, from my own experience and other people I've been working with or talked to, how should we use, because again, I know how you think about this, and this is also something I love, because these due dates turning red because we don't do the things and we push them forward again, and they become red again, and everything gets pushed forward. We get super stressed because we have 50 things to do, all is highlighted in red colors. How should we think about due dates? And a follow-up question to that, are there real due dates? Obviously, I need to deliver a speech or something for like Tuesday morning. That's a real one. But what about the soft due dates where I'm fooling myself and saying that this is not a real due date? It has a date on it, but hey, I might as well not care about it because it's not the real one. How should we manage the real due dates and the ones we kind of just put there out of, I don't know, without thinking about it?
Well, this is something, the way I look at this is that we've got events and we've got tasks. Tasks can be done at any time. So if I have to call somebody at 9:30 a.m., that's an event. It's non-negotiable. I am calling them at 9:30 a.m. That's what we agreed, and that's what I will do. But if I need to wash my car, a task, doesn't matter whether I do it in the morning or in the afternoon, unless it's going to rain. In which case I might get it done in the morning before it rains. But again, it's not like I must do it at 8:30 in the morning. And that's what a due date is essentially doing. It's fixing you at a time when it might not actually be convenient. If I look ahead 2 weeks on Saturday, I think to myself, I'll be able to sit out in the sun, weather permitting. I'll be able to, clean up the outside yard, whatever. I could do all that. But then on that particular Saturday, who knows what may have happened? I might suddenly go, I've got all this work to do that came in yesterday. So, because it's not a hard deadline, it doesn't need to happen. But to me, those due dates should be in the calendar, because the calendar, now this could be because I was lucky to start working in the 1990s, and we did use calendars properly then, and nobody could schedule meetings with you.
Yes.
And without your permission, nobody could, because it wasn't a digital calendar, it was a paper calendar, and it was great.
Yeah,
today you can look at your calendar when you leave the office and go, oh look, tomorrow afternoon's free. I can get on with some work, and you could arrive at work the next day and somebody's booked meetings for you. It's like, oh my week. But the thing is, to me, the calendar is the sacred territory. What goes on the calendar gets done. Yeah. So if it has a due date, it goes on the calendar. Even on the digital calendar, you have that all-day section at the top. And so that's where I would put anything that was like due today, that must be done today. Now, if it has to be done at a specific time, it will go into a time slot. But, actually I have Tuesdays and Fridays, the cleaner comes. And I have it in the all-day section. It just says cleaner here, because I know she's coming at 9:20-ish, 9:30. Yeah. So it's just in the top of I know she comes Tuesdays and Fridays, but it's still in my calendar. Yeah. Because I need to be aware of that when I'm planning the day, because she will kick me out of the office for about 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Mid-morning. So I need to be aware of that when I'm planning the day.
Okay, that sounds, totally agree. 100% clear. What about if you have 5 tasks with no due date, but you would like to do them? How do you prioritize tasks, not events then, using your terminology? Not events, but tasks. Like it could be anything, 5 things. How do you rank them in importance if you don't have a due date?
Well, the natural way to do that would be to go by time sensitivity. I was watching a podcast with Cal Newport's podcast yesterday. I think
I love him.
He mentioned about, he was asked a question about how do I prioritize these 3 pieces of writing, and he said you go first of all you look at the due date. When are these supposed to be submitted? That's going to be your first priority. If you're in the unfortunate situation where all 3 pieces of writing have to be submitted on the same day, you need to send out a few messages saying, look, you need to negotiate on the deadlines, because you're probably setting yourself up for failure big time there. But the other way that I do this is I use something called time blocking. And now I'm not, there's a big there's a mistake that I see people doing with time blocking is they try to, time blocking is not about blocking out every minute of your day.
Some people do.
That's impossible.
And
I know some people try it. I don't think they actually do it, but they try it. The problem here is if you get stopped in a corridor as you're walking to another meeting, you lose 5 minutes and now you're behind. Or a phone call or a meeting overruns. Now your whole day's screwed if you do that. So what I mean by time blocking is, for me personally, because this works for me, 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning is my focused work time. And I theme it. So Mondays and Tuesdays for me is writing, because I do a lot of writing. Wednesdays is audio visual. Thursdays is usually meetings, calls and stuff. Fridays writing, and Saturdays planning. And so that's already blocked in my calendar. Now, it's I would love to say it's set in stone. It's not. Like next Monday morning, I do have a meeting at 9:30 for an hour. So, but I mean, that's okay. You've got to be flexible. But I keep my calendar reasonably flexible during the afternoon, so I can deal with any emergencies or deal with any overruns with anything. And I have project time blocked in as well. When I've got projects to work on, usually Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon.
And how do you manage unexpected? Do you actually block time in your calendar for unexpected things popping up from anywhere, really? Or do you just leave white space in the calendar? Or do you actually name them?
I generally just leave it as white space.
Okay.
The unexpected stuff generally falls into one of 2 categories, which are the communications or admin. So my accountant has a bad habit of sending me an email on a Monday or Tuesday saying, could you send me these documents? It's urgent. And I always think to myself, why couldn't you send me that email last week?
Exactly, yeah.
But anyway, I need it by the end of the week. Now, I have a feeling, though, I actually have a theory why she says that in her emails. Because I'm not my accountant's only client.
No.
And I think people have become so bad at managing deadlines that she has to put a sense of urgency in her emails. She doesn't need to with me, but it's nice to know she needs it by the end of the week, because then I can just schedule it in. Now, when I did the weekly planning, I didn't know that was coming. And it might be 2 or 3 hours worth of work. So I have the flexibility every week in my calendar to deal with something like that.
Yeah. Makes sense. You mentioned Cal Newport, one of my other, I love, like the deep work thing. You talk about this as well. How are you making sure that you're focusing on the most important tasks? Like, let's talk about the Eisenhower matrix. Like, most of the times it's not important, but it's super urgent to somebody else. And this is when we react and do stuff. Like, how do you get your most important, not urgent things, which are for ourselves the most important things, which we can do anytime and it'll never be done. How do you get that on the calendar? How do you plan this? Like, to not miss out. Like, 90% of us do this all the time. There's a fire, we go, like, focus on the fire, but we need to do long-term work and we never get to it. Unfortunately, most of us. How do we get that into
this is about being consistent. So one of the things I have, this is where backlogs develop. They're they're not urgent, they're not screaming, and they just pile up.
Exactly.
And this is why people get so bad with email and messages, is because some messages are urgent, some are not. So what happens is that the ones that are not urgent get left, and then there's no time at the end of the day. So one of the things that I do every day is I schedule an hour for communications. Now, on average, I probably only need about 40 minutes to deal with my actionable communications. Occasionally, I will need the whole hour. And so I just follow a process. In the morning, I clear the inbox. And then as email comes in during the day, I'm just processing it. And then usually about 4 o'clock, cup of tea, put some music on, sit down and say, right, for the next hour, I'm doing communications. And it's very relaxed.
Yeah.
And this means that I mean, if I do have a backlog, we're only talking like 4 or 5 emails. And on the whole, I get back to people within 24 hours pretty much every day. And again, though, this only comes about because there's an intentional time blocked for communications. It's not just email, because I get text messages, of course, and I get my team work with something called Twist, which is Apple's Todoist version of Slack.
Okay.
But when we set that up with the team, I said, look, this is asynchronous. So never, ever, ever feel you have to respond immediately. Now, that meant that I had to be responsible for setting the deadlines. So, like, I sent the videos that I recorded today to my video editor. I said, I mean, here are the videos for this week. She knows the deadline Sunday. So I don't care whether she does it today, tomorrow, Friday, Sunday. I don't care, as long as by midnight Sunday I've got all the videos back. And if there's any problems, she knows to send me a quick message.
Yeah. This is also something very, like, a lot of the listeners are like company owners, like that they might have employees as well and a team to take care of. So you mentioned your team, which I wouldn't say everybody understands. I promise you there are people out there thinking Carl is doing everything by himself. He's doing the video editing, he's doing the podcasting, he's doing the everything. How can this crazy guy even sleep at night? Tell us a bit about your team. Like, what is your the reason why I'm asking is because if you're a founder, an entrepreneur, and you maybe have 2, 3, 4, 5 people on your team, what is, like, let's talk about delegation, like doing the right stuff at the right time. How do you work? Let's put a couple of minutes into this with your team. What does that look like? How do you communicate? Who are they? What kind of tasks do you delegate and why? What does that look like?
Right, yeah. So the first person I hired was a video editor. And that was last year. So actually I've been doing my own video edits for 6 years.
Okay.
But I enjoyed it. This is actually a problem, by the way, for all founders. I actually enjoy the video editing. But then it got to a point where whenever you run a YouTube channel and you've grown it, you always want to improve. And there comes a point where you think, okay, for me to go to the next level, I'm going to have to spend many hours learning some new video editing techniques. And I had to put my hand on my heart and say, I really don't have the time for that. I'm not excited enough about it either. But more importantly, I wouldn't have the time to learn those new techniques. And that was when I decided, okay, I'm going to get a video editor. And this great video editor. She's in all my team actually in the Philippines. Okay. And anyone, by the way, who's starting out, I would say hiring like a remote team, I use, it's called onlinejobs.ph.
Okay.
And they are brilliant because once you've hired somebody, you are paying them directly. I was always a bit uncomfortable paying an agency who then took 10% of the salary or whatever percentage it is of the people. And I just thought that was not fair. So I love online jobs, onlinejobs.ph. I love what they do. Is like, here are all the people who do it. They are trusted in the Philippines as well. So you get some really good people. And I've got a fantastic video editor. Now, my second person I had was a marketing manager. And again, it was for the same reason. I quite enjoyed posting on social media. But then I realized that I find SEO boring. I think I mentioned before we started that whenever I come across complexity, my brain just goes to mush. He just turns to jelly. I just, And I don't know, again, another person I could recommend to anyone running a business is a guy called Neil Patel, who does some amazing content on marketing and online marketing. And I do read his blog posts, I do read his, and watch most of his videos, but the thing is, sometimes it's just way over my head.
He's very niche, like very specialized and focused on what he does, and
But I mean, he loves what he's doing, and he's, he gets excited about it. I don't. So I hired a marketing manager, and she loves all that stuff, and she's throwing ideas at me all the time. Always when I'm walking my dog. I don't know why, but this is one of the reasons why we have this rule, which is it's all asynchronous. We're not like you must reply immediately. Nobody should ever be put under that kind of pressure.
No, and a thing on that, like a lot of people think that if they don't respond immediately, somebody's going to be like, "Why are you taking so long?" But I tend to say, like, think of it like this. Let's say that you're in a training session for 3 hours, or you're in a meeting, or traveling on an airplane. Nobody knows that you are traveling or not, so you wouldn't answer an email. You would be impossible to answer an email if you're on an airplane. And how would the client know where you are? So it's all about, like, one of my friends says a lot of. He often says that, like, who's responsible for your situation as a person, as a human being, as a worker, whatever it might be. It's only one guy or girl. It's you. So you need to take responsibility of, and you say it a lot of time as well. You own your calendar, own your time, and do not let somebody else control your calendar, hence control your life. Because then you're in reactive mode, and then you won't get any of the important things done, right? So like if you were sitting down with a founder, let's say he or she has a team of, I don't know, 5 or 10 people, small company, like what would be the first things you would, if they want to implement your methodology and your ways of working to save time and be more efficient, what would be the first things you would tell them to focus on to get control of all the chaos, all the emails, all the tasks, all the meetings? Like, what would be the first thing you would tell them? This is where you need to start.
Right. So when I'm working with business owners, there's 3 parts that they need to get right: strategy, communications, execution. Okay. So strategy is the business owner coming up with the ideas. So I'm the one who comes up with the ideas for content in my business. But in downstairs on the ground floor of where we live, there's a bakery. So the owner of that comes up with the new menu. Okay, so that's like strategy. That's coming up with the ideas. The communication part, as the business owner, is you communicating to your team in a way that they will understand clearly what is expected of them and by when, so that they can get
definition of done very clearly communicated,
very,
right?
Very clear.
Yeah.
Like what is expected, what's the definition, and by when. They need a deadline too.
Yeah.
And then your job as the owner, because this is why I hired a marketing manager, why I hired a video editor, is for them to do it, to get on and do the work. So it wouldn't be, for both of my members of my team and also anybody else's team, is if I keep sending, how are you getting on? Have you done anything today? That stops them from doing work, creates anxiety, and therefore now they're not creative because they're stressed, and you're not very creative when you're stressed. So as long as as a business owner, you've communicated what you want and by when, then you let them get on and execute. Now, the thing is, you need to be open to them coming back and asking clarifying questions. It's a bit of back and forth. It's not always a straight line. There's some back and forth. But that's what you're essentially doing. You're making sure that when you communicate your ideas, you communicate it in a way that your team clearly understands what's expected, what the deliverable is, and by when. And the execution is that you are there, obviously, to make sure that everything comes back in the correct time and in the way that you want it.
Yeah, so basically you're not telling them how to do the thing you told them to do or asked them to do. It's actually delivering a result, and you can do that in several different ways. And if you trust the person and they are employed to do a specific task, they should be able to think about how to do it in the most efficient way instead of you telling them exactly how to do it, right? Is that basically...
Yeah, and the other thing I've come across is when I've worked with managers in companies who have a long list of follow-ups, and they're following up their team, and I'm going, okay, there's a trust issue here. If you trusted your team, you wouldn't need to follow them up. Or there's a communication problem. Like you're not communicating clearly enough what's expected and by when. So you can see where all these problems come from is if you're not communicating clearly, then you're going to be following up and chasing, and you're just not going to have the trust. And you might think your team are not trustworthy, but actually the problem stemmed from your communication.
Yeah.
Get that right, and you can trust your team. They get the job done because, I mean, my video editor's way better at video editing than I am.
Yeah, and that's also like, even if somebody else does something, and this is also one of the biggest challenges, if you decided, I don't know if that's in your plan moving forward, but if you decided to put somebody in your place to do the podcast, to do the trainings, to do the coaching, and you would say, I want to build myself out of this company, somebody else should be doing what I've been doing for like so many years. Like, is that a hard thing to do? Like, you want to build out yourself from the company, but you mentioned that before. You love what you do. Let's say that you're going to build out, you replace yourself as a coach, as a business owner, and you just want to own the company and you want to maybe invest in other companies and stuff. Is that in your plan? And if so, like, would that be a hard thing for you to do because you love this? You're really good at it. Like, how should you think as an entrepreneur if this is something you're looking to do? Like, not be in the business, but working on the business.
My wife said the other day to me, she says, are we okay when we retire? And I said, who's retiring? You know, I have no intention
That's a good
of
answer.
retiring.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah.
Like my hero was, one of my heroes was Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
He was 99 when he passed away. He retired when he was 97.
Yeah.
I'll take that. Yeah,
and
I might retire when I'm 97.
That's the reason why he didn't live to 100. Because he retired.
I think, if he hadn't retired, he probably would have lived to 100. Exactly. Yes, yeah.
Potentially.
But the thing, I look at somebody like, take Tony Robbins, because most people have heard of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is actually not far away from 70 now, or 65. He might hate me for saying that. So I'll say he's 65 now.
Yeah, okay.
But many years ago, because I did his Unleash the Power Within in 2019, but many years ago, I think he overdid it on the speaking and damaged his throat kind of permanently. So he had to back away from doing some of his seminars. Now it's true when he tells people, you know, I'm on stage for 11 hours.
Yeah.
On day one of Unleash the Power Within, that's absolutely true, and it's go go go. I mean, there's no breaks. It is 11 hours.
Okay.
So the next day he has to take a rest, but you know, people are there to see him. So he's been training a guy called Joseph McClendon III, that's his name, who does the third day. And Joseph is probably also in his mid to late 50s, maybe 60s now. He's been with Tony Robbins for the last 30 years. And he was a student of his initially. And over the years, Tony Robbins has trained him and worked on him, and you know he teaches that stuff. So it is possible that sometimes, even if you don't want to, you have to because you damage your throat, or for health reasons, you have to back away a little bit. But that's something I think is important: is to be thinking ahead and thinking, yes, okay, so who could I train to do what I do?
Yeah. But still, you mentioned this is also very, very interesting to hear from somebody like yourself, because I've been struggling for a couple of years, many years, basically. It would be nice to build myself. I have a small shop. I work with freelancers. We're like 7-8 of us in total. We do sales and marketing. We deliver HubSpot CRM and everything connected to HubSpot. So with tech companies and SaaS companies, like in the Nordics, even though we have a US customer, everything is digital today. However, I've been thinking like I would like to build out, replace myself in the company and maybe do some fun stuff. And I went like going with my bike for trips. I had a lot of free time. I didn't use my time for productive things. Then I came back and I said, hey, but I love what I'm doing, so why should I not do this? And I think many of the listeners and viewers today are struggling because there is in the business world today, either you need to build your company, you need to hustle, work hard and long hours, not efficient hours, but you need to hustle and work hard. And then you need to sell your company and make your exit. But what if you don't want to make your exit? What if you love what you do? What if you want to work with this until you're 99? Is that a bad thing? I think it's a cultural thing that you shouldn't need to be working after, I don't know, like I'm 49. Why are you still doing what you're doing? Are you selling and you're over 50? Like, yeah, I love doing businesses and sell and close deals. So why should I not continue doing this, right?
Yeah, so you mentioned, I'm reading a book at the moment. It's a biography of the founder of the British Secret Intelligence Service, a guy called Mansfield Cumming. Now, it was founded in 1909, so 5 years before the First World War. But what I noticed, because the biography has been written based on his journals and his diary, and what I noticed is back then it seemed that only factory workers worked a set number of hours, like 9 till 5. It was probably a little bit longer back then because the trade union movement wasn't I don't think it existed until about the 1920s. But anyway, but what I noticed was the information workers, although they were like civil servants, who were not working in the factory, they didn't have fixed hours. Not like we've done today. What they did was they may have a lunch meeting, which could be like 3 hours, and it was a liquid lunch. There's a lot of wine and brandy, and because in those days they didn't care about that sort of thing. And then there could be long dinners, but there was a lot of work getting done. A lot of work. They worked weekends. They worked until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But there were many other times where they didn't start the day till lunchtime. There was no fixed hours. They were genuinely knowledge workers. And I thought, something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Somehow, because of, when we moved out from the factories, when the majority of people moved away from the factory and moved into the offices, they thought, we need a system. Okay, let's copy the factory system and have all these office workers working 9 till 5. Well, now we wonder why it's all a problem because, it just doesn't work like that. And I remember when I was working in a law office, there was always this what I would call the hypothetical question, which was, what happens if you discover the solution to a client's case whilst you're taking a shower? Can you charge them? Because you're not in the office, you're in the shower, you're not supposed to be working, but you've had the idea. Is it a billable hour?
Yeah.
Theoretically, no, because of the way that we've now designed office work. But so the thing is, and also the other thing you have to remember is back then there was none of the mental health issues that we have today either. Because people would take a break when they felt tired. They would get extra sleep when they felt tired. They would go off to the countryside and relax when they felt tired. Today, we're frightened of doing that.
Yes. And interesting enough, my ideas and things, they come to me as to many others. When I don't have a dog, I know you have a dog. When you're walking the dog, when you're doing your grocery shopping, when you're at the gym, this is when my ideas come to me. Because your brain relaxes. You're not focused on like output. You can actually. I have something I call thinking time every Monday, like an hour and a half. I just sit down in my sofa with a pen and paper, no screens, pen and paper, and I ask myself a couple of questions and I try to answer them. And this is when things happen. But also, and more often than not, when I'm out for a walk or whatever. So I always bring my phone and I have my note app where I jot things down and then I collect them and I start working with them in due time. And that's interesting because this is a good segue into my next question. And that is the question on work-life balance. To having work-life balance, to balancing your time. What do you think about work-life balance? Is it yes? Is it no? And why do you have is it a thing? Should we be thinking work-life? Give us your thoughts on that topic.
I think the issue here is that we have one life. Work is just a part of life. Another thing that I started questioning was a few years ago, the idea that you should do what you love rather than love what you do. So do what you love. They said, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. You have to love what you do. They kind of reversed it. So it means those people said, I want to be able to turn my hobby that I have a passion for and a love for into a business. And I think maybe 20 years ago that might not always have been practical because we didn't have access to the internet that we have today. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, well, I've managed to do it. I loved time management. I love teaching. I love productivity. It's like one of my geeky passions, if you like, but I've loved it since I was in high school. And I turned it into a business. And so every day now, I'm fortunate. I don't feel like I'm working.
Exactly.
I'm living life. And I feel like I'm living life fully. But one thing I think when it comes to like what we think of in terms of work-life balance is what I was mentioning earlier is when you feel tired, back off. Don't push. Now, this comes from when I used to be a competitive athlete. I was very fortunate to get a coach called Wilf Pace, who was part of the Great Britain athletics team. And I remember when he took me on, and after a couple of days, I said, "Oh, Wilf, do you have a training program for me?" And he looked at me and laughed at me. I went, "Oh, why?" Because all my teenagers, all the coaches had given me like this weekly training program. Yeah. He said, "I don't do those." He says, "What I want you to do is when you feel good, you push. When you feel tired, stop, back off, go for a walk, just a little jog. Don't do anything, don't exert yourself when you're tired." And you know, that's been a policy of my life now, all my life, not just in sport, but also, you know, if I feel tired, I'll back off. I'll do the essentials, like communications, and I'll try and start some of the bigger things that I wanted to do, but I won't pressure myself to finish it.
And I can so relate to that because when people ask me about work-life balance, I say it's the same thing. You said we have one life. And I love this. I also do most of the time what I really love doing. This is something I love doing, like getting a lot of insights from somebody like you who's very experienced. I'm a geeky productivity guy. However, I've come to understand that I'm not the consistent person who can turn this into a business, not even being consistent every single day of the week with my productivity. I love it. I read all the books, all the blogs. I follow your YouTube channel. I do like Cal Newport. I follow all of these like deep work and calendar scheduling, everything. And I do it like up until 70% maybe. But when it becomes a job, or now I'm actually in a position where I'm doing project management for my company until we get somebody employed, a coordinator, and it's okay. Clients are happy, but I'm seeing that I'm going to lose the grip if I continue doing this too much. It doesn't give me energy. It's not what I love to do. I can do it, but I should be doing this. Marketing, content production, interviews, like podcasting, selling, like closing deals. I should do. I was thinking about something which is, you spoke about like doing what you love. There is a book called, it's a Japanese book, Yomeyutsu, The Art of Achieving One's Dream. They talk about ikigai, which is the Japanese way of saying, you know this obviously, but for the ones who don't, if you can find something you love doing, where you're good at it, you can actually charge money for it, and you can do it for a living. And if it brings happiness to the world, basically, if you can connect those 4 dots, you've found something which will move you far away from work-life balance, because there is no balance. It's pulsating. It's focusing on specific periods of your life, on more personal, more work-connected things. But every time you wake up a Monday morning, and if you ask yourself the question, am I happy doing what I'm doing? Do I love what I do? If you answer no, and a real hard no, if you hate Sundays, you should actually think about what you're doing with your life, because we have one. Can you unpack that a bit more, Carl? Like the one life thing, I hate Monday mornings, I just hate my job. Like, what is the advice here? What should we...
That's exactly the position I was in when I was working in the law office. You know, I remember, people in Korea, we call it Monday morning blues, but I actually thought of it as Sunday night blues, because I remember sitting down on the Sunday night, having, been out, watched a sports game, been out with my friends, and suddenly it's Sunday night, And I'm going, I've got to get up in the morning, got to go to work. And it was, I suppose today, because we're a lot more sensitive to this sort of thing, we'd say that, I went through depression. It was a short-term depression. It was like just Sunday night. Yeah. But it really was. All the symptoms of depression, that was there on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate because I recognized it. Maybe that's a lot of this is self-awareness, thinking, well, hang on a minute. Do I want this for the rest of my life? Do I want to live for the weekend, which to me is not life? That means that for 5 days of the week, I'm doing something I hate in order to spend 2 days doing something I enjoy. I don't, no, the balance is completely wrong here. You know? So, and it was only when I discovered, like, because I came to Korea to teach English, and being in a classroom and standing up and walking around a classroom, suddenly I'm not tied to a desk again. And it was like, oh, this is joyous. And then the other thing that suddenly hit me was, okay, now I understand my purpose in life, which is I like helping people. So my purpose is to help people. It all sort of came together. And so I think of myself as being very fortunate. I've not worked a day of my life since the age of 31.
Exactly. And that's a lovely place to be.
Never felt the same as when I was working in an office. And so I think, there's a lot of people who have got themselves in a career that they absolutely hate. And now, because of commitments, family, children, mortgage, payments and stuff, they feel like they're trapped. Now, the thing is, you're never trapped. You are never, never trapped. If you really want to, and I remember Tony Robbins saying this, when the desperation gets big enough, you will change.
Exactly.
And for me, I was fortunate, I know, because that desperation hit me when I was 31. But even if you're 50, these days particularly, there is absolutely no reason for you to... Now, the thing is, you don't suddenly say, I'm quitting my job and I'm just going to start doing this. For me, I knew I was going to get out of English and go on my own, and it was just a gradual change to eventually where now I'm pretty much doing this. Well, I'm doing this full time with just a couple of English classes because I love those people and taught them for 15 years now. So
exactly, and that connects to your passion, what you love doing, and that gives you energy to do more of the other things as well. So it's super important.
So the biggest thing there, though, is I really want people to understand is you are never, ever, ever trapped. It might take you 3 or 4 years to learn a new skill and to build a new business. Or start a new career, but you are never, ever, ever trapped.
Agree, and I started my company. I had a mortgage. My first kid was on the way. I was working as a salesperson. I've been doing this for all my life. I just quit and I started my company. People were like, "Are you freaking crazy?" And I was like, "I know how to sell. This is what I do. I do have relationships with clients and companies." I can survive for a couple, maybe 3 months, and that was it. And then again, since then, I've basically not worked a day in my life either. It's not people listening to this are like, "Oh, it's so easy for you guys. You have your own company and everything." We're not saying that it's super easy. You just said no, and you said it could take 3 years, and that's the thing. So can we just, before we end, because we've almost come to an end, I'm being mindful of your time as well, Carl. If you're about to do this, we haven't really spoken about goals and visions, and can we do a short part of how do we, let's say that I want to stop doing what I'm doing. I want to start my company, I want to change, I want to do something else, I want to become a writer or an artist. Again, ikigai. Hopefully you can earn some money on it and somebody needs you and you're good at it and all those things. And I decided, how can I work with goal setting, daily activities, and let's talk about consistency also, like those 3 things. If you want to unpack it in that way, what would you give as final advice to somebody who wants to break free and thinks he or she is actually trapped? What would be the modus operandi on short and long term?
I think the first thing is to really just kind of project yourself forward like 10, 20 years and think, well, how do I want to be living my life? That's usually the first place, because that will give you an indication of what you need to do between now and then. So if you are, one of my favorite examples is if you have this ambition to travel the world when you retire, and you want to explore all these amazing places in the world, and yet you're say 30 pounds overweight, you're pre-diabetic, and you don't care about your exercise and your diet, then that projection in 20 years' time is not going to happen, because your lifestyle today is you won't be traveling the world, you'll be in and out of hospital all the time. Yeah. Now, if that's the life you want, that's fine, but I don't know anybody who does want that life. So you've got to kind of look back and say, right, what do I need to change today? The great thing about that is, though, what you need to change today is going to be tiny. Yeah. But if you're retiring next week and you're in that position, you're going to make some massive changes, which is probably not going to be possible to do. So I love the idea that, just going 20 minutes exercise a day and plus going out for a walk will stop me from getting diabetes later in life. Yeah. Keep me active means that I can go on adventures. Tiny little thing. Same with saving money. If you want to, have a holiday home in a really nice part of the world or country, start saving today, and it won't be that much you have to save. Start saving when you're 5 years away from retirement, and you're saving a hell of a lot. So the idea is, I always tell people to really have a good think about what you want to be doing in 10, 20 years' time. Think in terms of lifestyle, but also what you do every day. Yeah. So for me, it's like, I just want to be writing. I love writing. I love coming into the office and opening up my writing app, and I have a bit of music on in the background. It's kind of like white noise, if you like. But and I just sit down and write, and I love it. And that's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
And that's fantastic, because people hearing you saying this is like, how could this guy do this and for a living? He does productivity for a living. He loves what he does. Why can't I do this? And it's all about a process. It's all about making tiny steps early enough so that you can reach your goal. And I love what you said about 10, 20 years, because that is a span of, it's long enough. Like 1 year is too short, 3 years as well. 10 would be like, it's more of a vision. Like, I want to be this person.
Yeah, I tend to think of that as a vision of where you want to be living your life in 10, 20 years' time. And for me, that helps me with my goals. Now, the way I think of like the short-term goals is they're a little bit like little boosters to keep you back on track. So when I wrote my last book, I had to cut my exercise time down a little bit. For me, diet doesn't have much of an effect on me, but if I stop exercising, I balloon. It just piles on. So as soon as the book was published, I thought, right, I need to get back into exercise. And there's a bit of stop and starting. But for me, this was a short-term goal. It's just a booster to get me back into the rhythm of exercising every day, which I do now. So that's what I think of short-term goals. Longer-term goals to me are the vision, and that affects those short-term goals. Like say, my savings are not where they should be. I need a good 6 months of, adding money into my. So you're kind of monitoring it, not every day, but monthly, to see where am I at? Am I working? Is everything going fine?
Yeah, and it's all about consistency. And this is for my personal challenge, egoistic question. I can do this. This is my podcast. Like I have a real challenge in being consistent, long-term consistent. So an advice like to somebody like myself, I've read all the productivity books. I know the theories. I've done it pretty well for several months, even years. But eventually I kind of lose track, and I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing. How can somebody like myself, and I'm not alone, I know that many of our clients, everybody out there has the same challenge. Do you have any, there are no quick wins, I know, but do you have any final pointers and ideas and nuggets? Like, if you want to stay consistent, this is what you need to think about.
So with my exercise, for example, I can go 6 to 7 months every single day, not the same exercise every day, but exercise every day. Of course. And then suddenly something will happen. It could be we go on vacation, or I travel somewhere for a few days, and that consistency is knocked off. Yeah. And what I realized is we can be consistent if everything stays normal, but unfortunately life doesn't stay normal, does it? It changes all the time. Yep. So when we talk about consistency, what we want to be doing is realizing that you are going to have good days and bad days. You're going to have an off day. But the thing is, you didn't fail just because you missed one day. You didn't really fail because you missed a week. So when you do the weekly planning, that's when you look back and you sort of say, oh, I didn't do this 3 days this week. Next week, that's my focus. Because it gets you back in the rhythm. So consistency really is about rhythm.
Exactly. And people, before we end, we're going to tell everybody where to go, and going to post it on the podcast as well, or where they can find you, buy your books and everything. But it's something you say is like the weekly, and everybody in productivity says if you miss the weekly check-in, the weekly review, the weekly whatever you call it, if that fails, everything else fails. And you mentioned, I heard you say this, it's the weekly review, it's the daily tasks, and the daily focus, something like that. If you miss any of those three, the system is gonna break down, right? Could you give us just what do you mean by that?
To me, the two things that you really don't want to be missing is the weekly planning session, because that gives you the focus for the week, and the daily planning session. And honestly, the daily planning it's 5 minutes.
I know.
It's like what are my must-dos today, and what would I like to get done today? That's it. Yeah. You can even do that when you're brushing your teeth at night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just ask yourself those two questions: what are my objectives? What are my must-dos tomorrow? And what would I like to get done tomorrow? Now, the one things that you would like to get done tomorrow doesn't matter if you don't do them, as long as you do your must-dos.
Yeah.
And
what if you missed a weekly planning session week after week? What is that a sign of? Why does that happen to so many people?
Well, in that case, you haven't missed it. You're just not doing it.
Okay. So, all right. What's the difference?
I mean, so we're going to Ireland in July. Probably away for about 7 days. I might not do a weekly planning session that week. Yeah. Because I want it to be random. I mean, in my mind, I just going to because we're going with my parents-in-law. My parents live in Ireland now as well. So it's like, we're just like the two families, my wife and the two families all together. I do not want to be controlling this. So I'm not going to be doing a weekly plan. I'm just going to let them control it.
Yeah.
But for when I'm back here and I'm working, if I don't do the weekly plan, it means that I'm no longer in control of my week. I'm going to be dragged here. I'm going to be dragged there. I'm not going to have any idea what I'm trying to get accomplished.
So could you then say, for anyone listening who has a full inbox, a calendar scheduled with worthless meetings, somebody else scheduled for you, tasks getting overwhelmed, you have them on 5 different papers and tools and whatever, to get back on track, could you say that the one thing, and how to do this, obviously, read your book, go to your YouTube channel, buy your coaching, which, by the way, one of my employees actually, and she's actually my wife-to-be, we're engaged, so she's actually, so we work together, which is another thing, okay. Which is it's perfect, like to be able to do that. If you're one of those people, could you say that get a grip of your weekly check-in, do this, and you're on your way to getting control again. If you don't,
so you mentioned there about if your inbox is exploding, for example, you would know that when you do the weekly plan. And at that point, you say, right, next week I need to get on top of that. Yeah. And then what you're doing is you're saying, right, I'm going to spend 90 minutes a day just clearing my communications. It might not be 90. You could do 60 minutes a day, whatever. But you make a plan and say every day. If you do that every day for 5 days, you won't have an exploding inbox.
Exactly.
But the worst thing you can do is just ignore it, because by next week now it's not just exploding. It's just completely a mess, and
you get overwhelmed. Same thing with the due dates, because you put a due date on every single task, which is not an event, and then it just explodes. So then you get you don't even look at the due dates, and then everything falls apart, right?
Well, that's the thing is that I noticed that people stop looking at their task manager because it becomes too big. And again, because that's a symptom of not doing the weekly plan, or even just clearing things up, the organised part of COD. Those little things, I suppose they call daily practices. They don't take long on their own. It's 5 minutes here, it's 10 minutes there. But if you're consistent, and I know, consistency isn't easy, but once you realise the benefit, then the consistency comes easier.
And everybody who's been, training and working out and health and diet is a really good reference point, because everybody can relate to food and training and working out. Anyone who's actually done this consistently for a couple of weeks or months, they know what we're talking about. They know what you're saying, because when you get consistent, you don't want to miss a training session. You don't want to put a pizza or a burger in your mouth for the third time this week. You don't want to do evening eating because you know, and especially like, again, turning 50 next year, if I look at a pizza today, I gain weight. Like when I was 20 years old, not a problem at all. And
no, not a problem.
It's totally different ball game. So you need to be consistent, and this is so important. So weekly planning and doing this consistently. And again, there are a lot of tools. There are a lot of, like, if you go to look at 5 a.m. people, like doing everything before 6 a.m. They've sold their company. They've done everything, and it's not realistic. Like, what I love about you again, Carl, like the people who are going to following you who might not know of you before are going to love your simplicity, because it's not becoming a superhuman. It's not becoming somebody who works every single hour of the day and doesn't sleep. It's about doing things because we are humans, and understand that we are humans, and adapt your productivity style and your life to who we actually are, right?
Yeah, you've got to. This is why you probably need to start off by understanding yourself. I'm a night owl, so I go to bed at 1:30 in the morning. I wake up ideally at 8:30, and now that to me is a great day.
Yeah.
But I've got friends who, complete opposite. They're in bed at 9 and wake up at 5.
Exactly.
Works for them. So you've got to find out where you are, in terms of like they call it your circadian rhythm, and work with that. But again, I think don't push. I think the best advice I can give people is when you're tired, don't push. Back off. You'll feel better tomorrow, and you can push then. And when you get that, and I saw this in Formula One as well, because I like Formula One, and they call it push, and coast. So pushing is when they want you to really push hard, but you can't do that the whole race. There are times in the race when you've got to coast to protect your tires, to conserve your fuel. So there's a lot of strategies going on in just one 90-minute race. And when you understand, when you hear the push and the coast, and you hear that through the, actually I noticed that the broadcasters don't always put it in there, but sometimes you'll hear it say, it's like, Lewis, push, or something like that. Now that's what they're meaning is like, now you push, get those tires temperature up. Exactly. And so even in a 90-minute race, and in cars that are finely tuned cars, they can't go flat out from the start to the finish. There's pushing and there's coasting, and that's the same for us. Human beings, actually, although I say we're not machines, we're actually even more sensitive than those machines. And there are times when we have to push, but there's times when we should coast.
Yeah, and I read somewhere, I don't know who I read it from, but where I got it from, but it says it's about slowing down to being able to do more, slowing down to be able to get further. Like it's contrary. It's not very logical when you say it. Like, how can I get ahead when I'm slowing down and everybody else is racing? Yes, because you need to do both. Pull safe.
Well, think about it in terms of running a marathon. Yeah. You train very, very hard to run a marathon. If you want to do, say, sub 4 hours, you train very hard. But actually, a month before, it's recommended that you actually go out and you'll run like 30 kilometers. So on your Sunday long run, you'll run 30 kilometers, and then the next Sunday you do the same. And then you start tailing off. You wind it down to almost the week before you run the marathon, where you're just going out jogging. You're just doing like 5 kilometers here, 5 kilometers there.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
And then when the race starts, you're about to do 42 kilometers, and you're going to go, you're going to be pushing yourself. But if you were doing those long runs the day before you ran the full marathon, how are you going to do? You're not going to do very well.
No,
so,
not at all.
This is why, it goes that push, pull, but you've got to be kind of strategic with it. Like, if you know you've got a very busy day tomorrow, I would make today a bit of a coast day. Yeah, definitely.
This has been, we could go on for days. Without a doubt. Days. Potentially, hopefully, we'll see in the future. I would love to do a follow-up episode, maybe focusing in on specific parts of this. Anyway, this has been fantastic. I'm very happy. I hope you've gotten what you plan to get out of this podcast as well. Where can people find you? Where can they buy the book? Where can they follow you? Because they need to. That is my. They need to. You're awesome.
I think everything. The best place to find me is to go to carlpullein.com. So all the links are there. You can get to my YouTube channel, courses, coaching, and the book. They're all on my website, carlpullein.com. It saves them having to try and memorize everything else. Or you can now just Google search me, and you can find everything.
That's
as well,
good.
So.
Yeah. Perfect.
AI knows me.
Yes, and that's good. That's good. You've been putting out things for so long, so now everybody they Google you and they find information. How's that?
Yeah.
Surprising, right? Not really.
Yeah.
That's the way
I know,
we do it.
It's again, but that's consistency, isn't it? It's consistent.
It is consistency, definitely.
Consistent delivery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carl, thank you so much. It's been a blast. Have a great night's sleep because you're in the evening. But you're a night owl, so you're going to stay up for a couple of hours more. But have a great night's sleep, and hopefully we'll speak again. And thank you so much for joining. And for the ones listening and viewing, review this again and go visit Carl Pullein and do his coaching, do his training, do everything. Start with the YouTube channel. I've been it's fascinating. Simplicity. It's not becoming a superhuman. It's being who you are, but understanding in a simple way that it's not that complicated, really, when you actually get going. Thank you, and have a great day for everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.